Well. Hopefully you all can hear me. From my levels, it looked like you can hear me. For some strange reason, the intro did not play. I don't know what happened, but the sound wasn't there. That's okay. Sometimes you had hiccups. Last week I had big hiccups in the studio and solved some of the problems, but that was one that hit me that I wasn't prepared for. That's okay. We figure these things out. So welcome. Today, our topic is really simple. We're talking about the world's most valuable firms are Agile. Is this real news or fake news is my question, right? And I'm going to have a little conversation with you all about this, right? There is an article. I have Apple News, and so I went ahead and grabbed the article on Apple News. But, it's one of those things where when I see something, I'm a little bit curious about it, and I got some questions for you all, and I'll find that article and drop it, a little bit later, just kind of make sure we're good, right? So I drop it a little bit later, so then you all have it. So welcome if you're on LinkedIn. Welcome if you're out here on YouTube. If you don't know me, my name is Devon Morris. I'm certified Scrum trainer. I've been around Agile since 2005, and I'm really here to answer your questions. The way we operate with the show is we kind of talk with an intro for a few minutes, and then about 5 minutes after the hour, we go ahead and jump right into the topic. And I told you the topic is going to be the world's most valuable companies or valuable firms are Agile. Is that fake news or real news? So we're going to talk about that. And that was sparked by a particular article that I read and written by somebody who I really respect, actually. And so I want to just kind of have a little conversation about some of the things that have been coming to my mind, since I've been educating myself a little bit more, and I just kind of want to bring some of that perspective to you. And I need you all to let me know if I'm crazy, or if I'm off base, right? Because if I'm off base, I want to know, right? But I just want to kind of dive into that, right? So what's going on this week? I just started class back. So realistically, I kind of slow down classes a little bit, slow down work a little bit, just so I can make sure I get myself right with classes, because a lot of times it is a lot of reading, a lot of little things that I need to do. So I just make sure that I kind of go there with whatever I need to. And that's kind of the way that I begin everything, right? And so it's just a good thing, right? So nothing crazy. So do me a favor. If you're out there, just make sure you say hi. I'll make sure I do shout outs as soon as I'm done with whatever topic we're talking about. We'll get some shout outs at that point, and then we'll just kind of go from there. One thing I haven't done, and let me do this right now. I haven't jumped into LinkedIn, so please, if you're on LinkedIn, hey, just say, just make sure you say hi. I'm gonna shout you out a little bit later. But you may be over on my other machine, and I'm just kind of going in. It don't look like, man, that'd be crazy. It don't look like I've gone live on LinkedIn. Well, sometimes technology doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But that's okay. That's the other thing. All right. So let me go jump on that real quick to make sure I can see what they're talking about, what they're doing, and then we'll be good to go. So let me get the right place there, because sometimes people do ask a question too over on that side, and then I try my best to answer everybody's questions, as you all know. Let's see. All right. So boom. Yeah, it just doesn't want. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. That's okay. I'll get there as we kind of do this, so I'll jump in there in just a second. All right, there we go. All right, so I got them going, so we're good to go. All right, so that being said, again, just make sure you say hi regardless of where you're at. Here's the deal. I'm ready to go ahead and get started with this, right? I just want to get started with this because I really do think this is a super duper important topic, and I just really need to have a little conversation with you guys about it. And just let me know if I'm really crazy, right? I kind of created a small little presentation here like I've been doing the past few weeks. But let's kind of jump into this. Just jump into the math real quick, right? The world's most valuable firms are Agile, right? And I will say this to you all. Anything like this, I'm biased toward, okay? I'm biased toward it because I've seen it be a reality. I've seen it be true. I've seen it organizations that I've been a part of. We have more success when Agile's in the building, right? Now, again, the statement that I'm making to you is I am clearly biased. You understand? I'm biased because I have an interest in companies successfully doing Agile. Okay, so I make money off this. So since I make money off this, I would need to find some way to pull myself away from it, because a lot of times what you need to do is check the source. Okay? And if the source has a conflict of interest, you may want to think about it, right? It's like a cereal company paying researchers to talk about weight loss and kind of throw in the fact that oatmeal is healthy, right? You know, it's kind of like that kind of deal. There is a conflict of interest that's there. So sometimes you got to look at the source, is my point to you. But when a statement like this comes up, I'm absolutely all day game for it. You know, there is no question about it. I'm with it, and I'm ready to point it out to everybody. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that I do here to make sure that you all are kind of good and you have this is, I don't know if you have Apple News or not, but I'm just going to drop, on LinkedIn and then on YouTube. I'm going to drop the link here, right? And I'm dropping a link to where I got it from. Since I have Apple News allows me to have different types of articles. This is a Forbes article. It just is. And so I'm not sure if you got access to Forbes or Apple News, but that's the source of where I got it from. So I want to make sure you all have that as we jump into this conversation. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. If you go look at the list, this is a list that is actually included as a part of Table 3 of the world's most valuable firms. Okay? If you look, you see Apple at the very top, $3 trillion company. So big as all get out. The top 3 companies are tech companies. And who would you expect them to be? Apple, Microsoft, and Google, right? Alphabet. At least when it comes to US companies, right? And so I look at these companies, and they're tech companies. I guarantee you they're doing some Agile, right? I guarantee you, right? I guarantee you almost every company here may be doing some Agile, right? But is the Agile thing that they're doing the reason for their success is the question I'm asking you. Do you understand my statement, right? So, and you all, when you hear or see an article that says the world's most valuable companies are Agile, that's the reason why they're successful. When you see an article like that, that makes me feel that Agile is completely the reason for their success. It's the one thing that if you took out of there, they wouldn't be successful. Now, my question for you all, and I need you all to drop this in the comments for me. How does that kind of article make you feel, right? Most of y'all here are Agilists, right? And so I'm curious if it makes you kind of support it. You automatically look at something like that and be like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. 10,000%, that's true, right? With me, I've been a little bit more critical about things like this. Because as I look here, I see a bunch of amazing companies. I have experience with Chase that's at the bottom half, right? I have experience with IBM, not necessarily working there. The foreign ones I don't have experience with. Everybody knows of Toyota. I've had experience with Google. So I've experienced with a lot of these companies, right? With several of them, right? And if I don't have experience with them, I've at least thought about them, right? In some kind of way. And I always want to know what they're doing that's their secret sauce. But when I read when I take an article like that, immediately it takes me to telling clients that Agile is the reason for their success. That Agile is that thing that differentiates them from other companies. You get what I'm saying? And so it makes, for me, it makes Agile being the equator of their success. Okay? So, because a lot of times I run into executives and things like that that say, hey, give me some proof that this works. And easily, right? Look, the most successful companies in the world are Agile. What am I theoretically saying to them? Agile is the reason for their success. Or at least a major component of it. Does that make sense? At least a major component of it. And so when I look at this list and I think that way, I am so very happy. You understand? I am so very happy because I can put this in front of anybody and be like, look, hey man, this is the reason why you need to do this, right? Come and pay me a lot of money so I can help you do this better. But again, am I biased? Am I biased? I am. You understand? I am. And when I run into that kind of information, my bias takes over. Because my bias says it got to be true. They're successful. Agile drives success. Bam. But then I also started to say to myself, Agile drives success, great. But have I been a part of any organizations that were successful prior to Agile? That were successful even when Agile just wasn't a part of what they needed to do? Like they just wasn't doing Agile, they still was being successful? Have I seen companies like that? Interesting, right? But here's the deal, right? The question becomes, is that fake news or real news, right? Is that fake news or real news? And I just want you to go on a journey with me, and I need you to have a conversation with me because I could be the one that's being crazy here. I could be the one that's being crazy. You know, but let's talk a little bit more, right? Because when we start talking about Agile, the first statement is, what is Agile? What is Agile, right? And most of y'all in the room would immediately think, hey, you know what? Remember that manifesto? Remember those values and those principles that we all espouse to? Most of us would point toward this, right? Because if those companies are Agile, they are living and breathing the values and principles of the Agile Manifesto. Which I think I would, in my biased mind, say yes, right? But then I've been a part of companies that have been successful without Agile, and they're being successful. Okay? And so if they're being successful without Agile, then what are they doing? You know, they don't know anything about the Agile Manifesto, right? But I immediately go to the Agile Manifesto when I think Agile. And that's cool. That's probably a lot of us, right? Because that's our leaning. That's what we lean toward, right? But then I say to myself, okay, but then when I think about Agile, according to the Standards Group, and here's the deal. Many of us have used this exact information to tell somebody at some point. Now look, who out here, who here has said Agile is 42% successful and Waterfall is less than 3 times that? Come on. If you said that to anybody, because I definitely have, right? I definitely have. And so, but the question I'd ask you is, where does that information come from? Where does that information come from? Well, it's easy. Forget the Vitality Group of Chicago. The source is the Standards Group Report 2020. And the Standards Group created this thing called the Chaos Report. And in that report, they give metrics about Agile. But the Standards Group does services related to information technology to Agile. It is in their best interest to make sure that whatever the data is that they have, that it leans in a certain direction. So could I say that this is not biased? I can't say it. I can't say it at all. Because for me, this is the thing that I automatically go to almost everywhere, that I've been going to for years. And over the past, probably since the pandemic, I stopped going to it. Because once I got into this PhD program, I asked people who did completed dissertations, so doctors at this point, who did their dissertation on Agile, and every single one of them that I asked said they could not find any standalone proof that Agile was more successful than any other method that exists. Did you hear what I just said? They couldn't find it, right? And then what they also told me is they went to many of the signers of the Agile Manifesto. You know those signers, right? You know those signers that are right here, right? On this whole ad, you know those signers right here? Someone went to some of these signers, and those signers provided anecdotal stories, which are stories that happened to them, and they couldn't tell you the exact things that you would need to do to be successful the vast majority of the times, or 42% of the times, like this is. Does that make sense? Right? And so literally, I'm having these conversations, right? Because one of the reasons why I've gotten into the PhD program is because I wanted to really find really independent standalone proof on what really works and what does not work. That's one of the main objectives why I'm going for a PhD, because I want to get into the research. Like, okay, great example. Who in here has read the book called Drive? Dan Pink. Who's read that book? Dan Pink will say to you, the studies show. The studies that he looked at was from the 1970s. It was old data. It's old data that he has in his books. Old, really old data. Do you think anything has happened in the past 25 to 50 years that's been different about motivation? Do you understand where I'm coming from? But going to the sources that he espoused to have gotten, those resources are from, they're old, man. They're old. And so I can't even trust the statement of, once you take money off the table, people are motivated by purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Do you understand? And so now I'm getting to a place where I think about these things more. Even as you go a little bit further back in history, like the 2012, this is a little blurry, but I had to grab something, right? Agile back in 2012 was 42% successful. Well, Waterfall's 14% successful. So Agile hasn't gotten any better. It hasn't made anything any better over the past 10 years. So so it's almost like it's stagnant to me. You understand where I'm coming from? And I don't even know what the actual data is, because I don't have that, right? I just have a report that was put out there. And so I don't know if these things are true, you understand? Because, again, the people who came out with this information, I believe they could be just as biased as me. Does that make sense? Do I sound crazy here, or something wrong with me? Because I want you all to understand that as soon as I saw that Agile was the driver of success for the most valuable companies on the planet, and then I read the article, and the article did not tell me how. What about Agile made them super successful? It didn't do that for me. And so here's the deal, right? What are the hallmarks of Agile? What are those hallmarks? Because I want you to understand the hallmarks of Agile, because we all can agree with this, and you all tell me, what am I missing, right? When I think about Agile, I think about rapid iterations and making sure we do something like continuous delivery. Making sure we deal with our engineering practices, make sure we deal with our processes, right? In some kind of way, right? This is not a Scrum thing. This is not a Kanban thing, but Agile in general, I'm looking for rapid iteration. I'm looking for being able to deliver faster and faster and faster, right? Hallmark of Agile. Another hallmark of Agile is decentralized decision making. Trying to find ways to push decision making closer to the people that's doing the work, right? This is another one of those things. Hallmark of Agile. A third hallmark of Agile is customer-centric approaches. XP actually has a customer in the room. Scrum, you get a product owner, right? So the idea is that they're customer-centric approaches. And last but not least, it's all about flexibility and adaptability. Tell me what I'm missing here. These are 4 classic things that I would say that every single Agile approach settles in on to some degree. They all settle in on these things, right? And so if we know what those hallmarks are, we're kind of good, right? But here's what I want you to remember. That the Agile Manifesto was created in 2001. The Agile Manifesto was 2001, right? Interesting, right? Because that happened in 2001. But here's the question. In 2000, here's the list of successful companies. Do you think that this list was using the Agile Manifesto? Because it didn't exist. So what was the secret sauce for their success? How were they successful? I got a technology company at the top of the list. How were they successful? Because Agile doesn't exist at this point. Does that make sense? It just doesn't. That's one of my daughters right there. It just doesn't exist at this point, right? So this is something that I think about, right? And I'm like, okay, all right. It's interesting, right? And so I got companies that have been successful over the decades, right? No question, right? Just always successful, right? And so here's something interesting, right? Patrick says actual studies show that there are few true Agile companies. Most successful companies actually use hybrids. And I agree with that. I mean, if you think about it, tell me how many companies that you have actually worked at that has been doing purely Agile. Purely Agile. Me never. And I've been around for a time, right? I've been around for a little bit of time, right? Me never, ever, ever, ever. Is it in the building? Yes. Do they change a little something? Yes. They change a lot of little somethings, right? So I agree with you, Patrick, 10,000%, right? And one of the biggest things we talk about is, hey, you got to do all of it, right? But that goes back to a simple statement. That over the years, Agile has just become simply a buzzword, y'all. It's become a simple buzzword, okay? It's just a buzzword that's gotten more popular and more popular and popular. And when you think about that buzzword, the key elements of that buzzword is all about efficiency, innovation, and resilience. Efficiency, innovation, and resilience. That's what it's all about. So great. We can have those kind of things and keep just moving toward our success, right? Because that buzzword is just that. It's a buzzword, right? And so with that buzzword, what you have seen over the years is people start to couch that as being called business agility. You all heard this. There's been books that have come out over the past 10 to 15 years that have couched that buzzword into business agility, which I think is cool. I think that's a major thing, right? I think that is a plus. But hey, What is business agility really about? Really, one simple word: at being adaptable. Adaptation is all it's really about at its core, right? Adaptation across the business. But again, if I just go back a few slides, adaptation, efficiency, innovation, and resilience. I can add that to this or incorporate these things into that. So, I get it, but what's really going on here? Well, when I think about adaptation, we're talking about adapting to market changes, taking advantage of technological advances and evolving the customer's expectations. These are the things that we are adapting around for business agility, right? For business agility in particular. And so we're adapting to those three different things constantly, so we can get a competitive advantage. Nothing surprising about that. But here's the question. In 2000, wasn't companies adjusting to market changes, taking advantage of technology advancements, and evolving around the customer's expectation? Wasn't they doing that in 2000? I was around in 2000, and my answer would be clearly yes. And most of them didn't have a clue about Agile. Well, the Agile Manifesto didn't exist at that time, right? So, okay, all right, I get it. I get the argument, right? But if I go to a company that was created in 1994 and was definitely well on its way in 2000, Amazon, and I look at Amazon's value chain, right? Their value chain has support activities and it has its primary activities. All of this being in operations, and if you have operating costs, you make money, you have a difference in those two that's positive, that margin is your profit. Does that make sense, right? But I'll ask you a question. In technology, the development of technology, let's pretend like that's purely Agile. But could you say that procurement is? Could you say that human resources is? Could you say that infrastructure is? Could you say that marketing, sales, inbound and outbound logistics is? Could you say all the operations is or service is? These are the activities and support activities that are there inside of almost every single company. So how many of these support activities do you really believe would be an Agile inside of a company? If I think about the average companies that I worked at, technology, definitely. Let's pretend like that's 100%, right? But it's likely hybrid, right? Infrastructure ain't. We could pretend like it is and say it's Kanban, right? Human resources usually is not. The legal department is not. Okay? Just not. Okay? When you think about marketing and sales, not. I guess service could be. Your various logistics, I guess, could be. Operations could be. But I doubt it. If more than 50% of this is not Agile, then how is Agile driving company success? Or are we looking at it from a myopic place where software is everything? Because software isn't everything in a company. Some people tend to forget that in most organizations, IT, information technology, is an expense. It supports other things. It supports your ability to do things. It's most companies, right? Look, whatever I'm missing, y'all, let me know. Drop it in the comments because, it's one of those things that's been hitting my mind and just I've been thinking about and pondering on, right? So when I look at this, I know that hey, Amazon today delivers every 2 minutes to production. But is HR really Agile? I don't know. I've never been there. I doubt it. So then let's take it a little bit further, right? Because really, a lot the Agile framework, some of the most popular ones came out mid 90s, but then the first of those things came out mid 80s. Okay, the first of any of those Agile, those counterculture movements came out mid 80s. Okay, and if you go back to 1980, before any Agile framework came out, before any Agile method came out, you got IBM, a technology company, at the top. Was IBM using Agile? The buzzword Agile? Were they using the Agile manifesto? No. Was they using Scrum? No. Was they using Spiral? No. They wasn't using any of those things. And so how did a company like IBM become successful at this time? There's something in their secret sauce that has nothing to do with Agile that's helping them to be able to do whatever they need to do. I would just call it the buzzword, just agility, right? You know, those efficiencies, innovation, right? Those kind of things is what I think that they're doing. But every time somebody's being innovative, do we have to call that Agile? Really? Do we? When everybody is adapting, do we always have to call that Agile? Adapting to whatever the market is at that time? So is every company Agile? Well, the buzzword Agile, for sure. But I don't know how you can be innovative without adapting. And this list of companies definitely was innovative. Definitely innovative, right? And so for me, I just sit back and I just say to myself, like, oh, what's really, really going on, right? Because I have to say to myself, then what's the hallmark of business, right? What's the hallmark of business, right? Because it goes back to, hey, the hallmark of business is efficiency, innovation, and resilience. I look here, Patrick says it, right? Innovation. They had the right product at the right time. But again, that's our buzzword right there, right? Agile is, that buzzword is about efficiency, innovation, and resilience, right? You know, and let's just say we do look at it from a product standpoint, but everybody's offering something, right? Product or service or something, right? How do they get that out? Right? The product and what is being delivered to the customers at the heart of every single company. I agree with that. I agree with that 10,000%. So as I go back to that hallmark of efficiency, innovation, and resilience, you know, I say to myself, is that what Agile means to us today? Is that what Agile really, truly means to us today? Right? Because when I take that step back and I go ahead and look at that initial list of those companies, would I agree with you that probably every single one of those companies has the buzzword of Agile in there? Yeah. Efficiency, innovation, and that third one was resilience. Do they have those three things in there? Yeah. Would I say that they have the Agile from the Agile manifesto perspective in them? No. Could I guarantee you that some of them do? Yeah. Especially tech companies. All of them got some form of IT, right? So maybe their supporting activities, especially IT, technology development, that probably has some Agilist stuff in there. And when I say Agilist stuff, I'm meaning hybrid stuff, right? Hybrid of some kind, right? Yeah, I kind of agree with that, right? And so it just kind of boils down to a simple question. When somebody throws an article, a legitimate article out there, somebody who you respect, and they legitimately say to you, surprise, the world's most valuable firms are Agile. boy, that makes me salivate because I'm looking for proof in that article that those companies, the things that drive success is Agile. But when I read the article, it doesn't give me anything that points toward that. If I'm looking at it from a non-biased state of mind. But if I'm looking at it from a biased point of view, it means the world to me. It means the world to me. Does that make sense? It does, because I can use that to sell it to somebody. Okay? I can use it to sell it to somebody. However, I'm not as biased as what I used to be. And I'm going to say this to every single one of you in the room. And Patrick says, Agile practices in recent times simply helped to improve on their existing processes and made them nimble enough to adapt to market changes at a faster rate. I would agree with that. Okay? Help with that. But is that the core of their business? Maybe not, right? But the idea is that, has it helped? Yeah. Is there anybody in here that believes that Agile is the driver for the most successful companies, for the most valuable companies in the world, that Agile is the driver of their success? Anybody in here believe that? I don't. And if you do, that's fine, right? Because 5 years ago, I would have been that believer too. I just have a more discerning heart right now. And that discerning heart says to me, check bias, check people who could benefit from this. And normally when I do that, I go down a rabbit hole and I'm able to find that there could be some bias in that information. I'm not saying that to break anybody's heart. You feel me? I'm really not, because I want to be a believer. I want to be a believer in the total success that you just apply Agile and it just works every single time out the box. But any of you all that's been around Agile at all know that that's not true. Because, it's kind of like people will say to you on one side of your face, Agile's not a silver bullet. But if you're going to say to me the most valuable firms are Agile, then doesn't that say to me that Agile is a silver bullet? My statement is simple, y'all. Which one is it going to be? Is it a silver bullet or it's not? In my experience, it has not been a silver bullet. So if it's not a silver bullet, then how are the most valuable firms Agile? Maybe Agile in the buzzword sense. The buzzword sense that they are efficient, right? They're innovative and they're resilient. Yeah. But from an Agile manifesto perspective, bah humbug. Bah humbug. I don't believe it to be true. Am I off my rocker, y'all? I mean, literally, tell me. If I'm wrong, tell me. Because it's one of those things that every time I get new information, I look at studies, things of that nature, I see things that I can't use as true evidence. And the thing about it is, I remember talking to an executive and say Agile projects were 42% successful, while waterfall projects was 12, 13, whatever the percentage was. And I remember him questioning that. And I had no real response. I had no real response. You understand my statement? You know how that impacts your money when you're with an executive and you have no real response to a real question that they have? No real response, people. So I had to start thinking about this a little bit more. If you know anything about me, you know when I don't get something right, I go study it to figure out how to get it right the next time. And I do that all the time. So that being said, I think I'm going to leave it right there, y'all. What we're going to talk about next week is we're going to jump into business agility a tad bit, right? Unleashing business agility, secrets to success. So that's going to be our topic next week. I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week for us to have that conversation, right? Just an amazing thing. If you're here, make sure you say hi. If you like what we talk about, make sure you like and subscribe. Do all those great things. We're still working toward growing, and then we want to get the information out there. Don't forget, for those that have certifications, this is Scrum Education Units. You can use this to help yourself renew your certification. You can't use all of this for your certification, but the idea is that you definitely can use some of it to help you, right? So just know that. And these are free, right? So hopefully some of you all said hello and hi. I'm going to go check it out real quick to make sure we're all right. We're all right. So if I come on over, I'm going to jump on LinkedIn first. Sam Brooks, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing amazing. Let me come on over here to my YouTube folks. Patrick, man, how you been? I'm doing good, man, as usual. Thank you for all your comments and support, brother. D, how you doing? Always see you around, D. Love you. I appreciate you. Hey, Rajiv, what's going on, brother? How's it going? I got some work to do for you. I know. I'll be working on it probably Wednesday. Shane, how you doing? Good comments, right? Definitely great comments. Denise, how are you? How's everything going? Hopefully you have an amazing start to your week. Let's see, anybody else I have here? Oh, okay. There's some other people here that haven't said anything. That's okay. So now, as you know, here's when we come up to someplace different. If you have any questions, here's how we do. You're welcome to join the show. A whole lot of people have joined the show lately. So the other way to get your questions answered is to drop it in the comments. You drop it in the comments. I'll work on your question. So any questions, just start to drop them in the comments. Yeah. I don't drink real beer, y'all. This is ginger beer. So. And I don't have no sponsors, so I ain't trying, but I like this. All right, so what kind of questions do you all have? Yeah, the truth is that the vast majority of those companies on that list was around before Agile. I mean, literally, I don't know the history of all of them, but the vast majority of those companies were around before Agile. And the truth of the matter is, when I became a mainframe developer, and in becoming a mainframe developer, the people that was doing the development was old heads. And they would always talk about olden times and how really this Agile thing was nothing but what they used to do. And so I just think it's a rehashing of what has always been done, right? And so it's one of those things where people don't quite get that because this is what it is. It's that new thing. And there ain't nothing new about it because it's been around for many years. It's like software has been developed since the 60s, even before that. So how did they develop software prior? Most people will say to you that waterfall didn't come around till 1980. Officially. If you want to go to 1970, you can. But the idea is that that's not 1960. So people were developing software in a non-waterfall way because nobody knew what waterfall was. So a lot of these things have histories that predate, the Agile thing. And how do you justify that? At least I can't, right? I can't, right? So, it just is what it is, right? These same here, hopefully you're out there crushing life. I like it when we all crush life, right? Crushing life is what I'm just so good at. That is so crazy. But hey, man, that's the way I think. I do actually think that way, yo. Like, I'm for real. Like, I think I'm great. I have my moments, right? I definitely have my moments, right? If I haven't done a class in a few weeks, sometimes I get a little nervous, right? So I definitely have my moments, right? I think we all do, right? If you're human, maybe you're not human. Maybe you're alien. Well, if you're alien, you should let us all know. Because then you'd hurt a lot of feelings. You would. People be really angry at you. So, you could make a lot of money too. All right, so Any questions? Any questions? You ain't got any questions, then we'll wrap it up, right? So you know how we do. I enjoyed that topic. I saw that article last week. You know, I couldn't do last week and change the topic last week, and so I just like I really want to talk about this because I'm such a sucker, and I fall into those traps of somebody that I know of that I respect in terms of their writings, and then they say something, and I'm all in. I'm all in without any further proof or justification, any further than what I just saw or showed you, right? Like literally, you know. And they don't give me no proof, and then I'm just like, okay, yeah, this is what it is. So yeah, so I'm just like but I enjoyed that topic. I'm gonna really enjoy next week's topic as well, unleashing business agility. Business agility has definitely been something I've read a couple books about over the past 10 years, right? And literally, when I say it goes toward efficiency, innovation, and resilience. These are the three words that I use to describe business agility, right? But again, I don't think that's any different than any business that's been in business. They do the same thing, right? If you're not innovative in what you do, your product will get stale at some point. Even Kokesh tried to change the formula. Didn't work out well from what I remember, but even they tried to change the formula, right? And even if they don't change the formula and what it tastes like, they change some of the ingredients to try to make it more efficient for them, to make the cost a little bit easier and more palatable. Isn't the true failure rate of agile transformations in the high 70s and 80s, man? Patrick, I don't know. Here's the thing about it, Patrick, is that I couldn't disagree with you. I could not disagree with you. But we don't have no proof in either direction. And so I'm curious when people say Agile is 42% successful, Waterfall is 13. I'm like, where you get that data from? Like, let me see the data. So, and then, Patrick, if I'm a company, am I going to let people know that we are 70, like 80% failure on Agile stuff? I'm probably not. I remember, as I say to people, I worked for Capital One at one point. In 2006, 2007 is when they did their initial transformation. But still, in the DFW area, I've heard people talk about that they were doing another transformation in the 2010s. The late, like in the 2018, 2019. I'm just like, but we did it already. So what's going on? So yeah, so I don't know, Patrick, and I don't know if we ever have that information, but it would be nice to really understand it, because my third Agile opportunity, Agile got kicked out the building. Like, so on number 3 for me, Agile kicked out the building. On number 1, we had to fight just to do one little effort. On the second one, that was Capital One. They was already kind of in it, right? So I wasn't at the transformation part. I just came in as a Scrum Master. So definitely a different place, man. Definitely a different place. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what the true failure rate is for Agile transformations. I know it's not 0. And if I go back and look at this little diagram, for some strange reason, if I was to go to the diagram, right, and say it definitely ain't 11%. Definitely, if y'all think about transformations as being a project, it's definitely not a situation where only 11% of them is a failure. You understand what I'm saying, Patrick? I mean, there's no way that only 11% of them are failure, right? And so it's just like, if I just use these numbers to extrapolate, then, and from what I keep hearing, yeah, I just I don't know how you get that information because I don't see private institutions letting that information out, right? They're not going to want to talk about what they did successful or how they failed, right? Um, you know, so it just, and some of those failures, you know, some of those failures are just due to politics, right? So how do you really deal in that situation? That's what I don't know, right? Okay, you said something really interesting. I believe PMI put that information out earlier this year. It is partly one of the reasons why they identified hybrid models as the thing out there. Yeah, I can believe PMI would put that out there. But then I go back and say, okay, the source is the Project Management Institute, the de facto standard. What has kicked PMI's butt over the past few years or past decade has been Scrum, Agile, right? So much so that 50% of the PMBOK is Agile, Scrum now, and that they even have their own scale kind of framework. So now I'm looking at the organization and saying, hey, where's your data? Where's your data? Yeah, I don't have no problem believing you. I want to believe whatever it is, right? Just prove it to me. Prove it to me. And so I say, even to them, prove it to me. Because, again, is PMI a little biased? They're a little biased, right? They're a little biased, right? Because disciplinary Agile supports a hybridization. So I go back and say to myself, let me look at the party and see if they have any reason to be biased, would they benefit from this whatsoever, if they have a conflicting interest. And I think that PMI has a conflicting interest, right? I won't say it's true or not true. I don't know. I really don't know. I wish I could know, right? I wish I could be able to tell that, right? And if I could, I'd put it out there, right? But the idea is, I don't know. I wish I knew. I really do, right? But it's definitely not zero. Let's put it like that. They're not all successful. And I definitely believe it's more than 11% of them are unsuccessful. 80%, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't know, right? Anybody know? Tell us. It'd be nice for us to know, But then again, I go back and say, okay, well, the standards group, they say this, and PMI says that. If I had to believe any one of them, I'd probably believe PMI. But PMI is not a de facto standard. They're not one of those groups that's supposed to not be biased, right? So I don't know how you would justify that. Is my point really, Patrick? I'm not sure, right? But again, that's one of those ones I don't want to believe. I don't want to believe that 80% of Agile transformations are not successful. Like, I don't want to believe that, right? I don't want to believe that, right? But again, I don't care about believing it. I don't want to believe it anyway. I want evidence on its truth. I want validity here. That's what I want. I want what you say to be what it's supposed to be. That's what I want. I want some validity is what I want, right? I want to be confident that you are accurately stating what is the truth, right? That's all I want. That's all I want. I just want some validity. That's it. That's all I want. Nothing more than just some validity. Make sense? So yeah, so that's crazy. So anyway, this has been interesting, y'all. This has been interesting. I think we're gonna wrap it up at this point because we didn't really have any questions. So next week, once again, we're gonna talk about business agility. We're gonna jump into that topic, and then we'll kind of go from there. Hey, I appreciate everybody that's here. Hopefully, you got some good information here. I'm just gonna say to you, check your biases when you start reading this stuff. Check your biases when you take information in, because once you take it in and you really believe it's true, you teach it to others like it is true. And it could be false. So check your bias at the door when you're looking at information like this, and check to make sure that people that you're seeing was true, right? So I just gotta say that, right? True that. Besides, you can provide data to back up any claim you make, and that's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to provide data for the claims that I make, and I just don't want to make claims for the sake of making claims. And I hope you can be that way too. And if you can be that way too, I think we'll end up with a better world that way. Well, at least a better world within the Agile space, a better world of work. You understand? Anyway, y'all, that's Devon Morris, man. This is the Unfiltered Show. I'm going to talk to you next week, same time, and on Monday, and we're going to go through this again. We're going to make it happen. But other than that, look, hey, peace, y'all. Make sure y'all have a most amazing week. I will see you next week. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.